for joining us today for our estate planning workshop. This is a part of the Homeownership SF Housing Expo 2022. This is our 9th year putting together the Housing Expo. Very pleased and excited to bring a whole host of resources for all homeowners, home buyers, renters, and all low to moderate income families and individuals who need housing here in San Francisco, and who want to also be able to maintain their housing. We want to not just help you to get in housing and achieve stable, but also to be able to stay and maintain that housing for the long term, so that you have a nice stable financial basis and financial picture that you into the forward, into the future, and stay here in the city. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. So Shannon Wei, I am the Executive Director of Homeownership San Francisco. We have two fantastic, wonderful guest presenters today. Before we jump into the presentation, though, I do have a few things just from the perspective of housekeeping that I did want to go over. So the first thing is that this meeting is being recorded. We will be recording this meeting for the purposes of making it available to yourselves, and maybe you want to go back and kind of refresh yourself on some of the things that we cover today, but also so that the public has this information. And so we will be sharing this on our YouTube channel, the Homeownership SF YouTube channel, at a later date. It'll probably take us a couple of days to get everything posted, but you will be able to see that up there. We have the chat room enabled coming in. All of your microphones have been turned off. I would ask that you please keep your microphone turned off so that we can eliminate background noise through the duration of this presentation, just so that everybody can hear and so that it is not disruptive. You can use the chat function to enter any questions that you have. Again, keeping in mind that the meeting is recorded. If you have a question of a personal nature that you don't feel comfortable sharing in a way that could be publicly accessible, you can also email us, and we would be more than happy to follow up with you after this workshop and make sure that all of your questions are answered. You can also join us Saturday at our Housing Expo event with the Resource Fair and Help Center, which I will talk about a little bit again at the end of this presentation. So we ask that you please hold your questions again until the end, or put them in the chat. If you want to put them in the chat, I will be, after both of our presenters have been able to share their information, I will be going through those questions and reading them for the presenters to answer. And then also, if you feel more comfortable to ask your question, vocally, you can feel free to unmute yourself and, in a organized fashion without interrupting anybody, you can speak your question as well at the end when we have the question and answer section. Okay. So we have lots of fantastic information to bring to you today. Again, thank you for joining us. This is a workshop about estate planning. Our presenters today are Sandra Gates Anderson with the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development, and Irene Zhu, who is with Housing Economic Rights Advocates. And of course, as I mentioned, my name is Shannon Wei. I'm the Executive Director of Homeownership SF. Thank you. So Homeownership SF is a coalition that is made up of the 5 housing counseling agencies that are approved by HUD, the Department of Urban Development, and Department of Housing and Urban Development, just to be official. They provide housing counseling. So this is services to help people with rental housing. This is also first-time home buyer education, and other individual support such as credit building, debt reduction, and other important financial things that help to support housing stability. And then also, as I mentioned, once you're able to achieve homeownership and be in your home, we want to continue to be a resource as well. So we do have a series of post-purchase workshops. There's, pretty much one or more every month. You can go to our calendar, homeownershipsf.org, and regardless of which agency is hosting the post-purchase workshop or any of the workshops, we keep a combined calendar. So that way you're able to get all of the information in one place. Our member agencies are Asian Inc. They provide services in Vietnamese, Cantonese, and English. San Francisco Housing Development Corporation, they provide services in Spanish as well as English. The San Francisco LGBT Community Center, which provide Chinese, but only Mandarin. They don't have Cantonese and Mandarin, where Asian Inc. does. Just Mandarin at the LGBT Center, but they do also have a Spanish speaker as well. Balance, which was formerly Consumer Credit Council of San Francisco, and they are now Balance. Changed their name a little while ago for obvious reasons. It's much shorter and really speaks to what they do with empowerment, financial empowerment, and they provide services in Spanish as well as English. And then the Mission Economic Development Agency, which provides, again, Spanish and English services for Latinos in San Francisco. So these agencies are the ones who, would meet with you, who are typically presenting at the workshops. Their counselors are licensed and trained, with all the information that they need to help you to, to answer your questions, help you to understand what your options are, and to help you to make the best educated decision for yourself and for your household. As I mentioned, the Homeownership SF website does have the workshop schedule. So the one that is specific to homeowner workshops, I have the website down here. If it's easier for you to call or email us, or if you have a direct question, or if you would like an individual appointment to meet with a housing counselor to help work on foreclosure prevention or other questions that you might have as a homeowner, such as dealing with home maintenance, estate planning, etc., you can always reach out to us by phone as well, 415-202-5464, or you can email info@homeownership.sf. We have on staff people who can help to speak a variety of languages, including Mandarin, Cantonese, Spanish, and Filipino. And we also can help and get translation to help with other languages. So please don't let that be a barrier. We do actually have a workshop that the Mayor's Office of Housing and the HERA does with us for homeowners, and it is a much deeper dive than we will take today in terms of estate planning. That next one is not scheduled yet, but it will be scheduled soon. So I would encourage you to keep checking back at the Homeownership SF website every so often. And if you'd like to be emailed when we do have that next time that we will the estate planning workshop schedule, you can also reach out to me at info@homeownershipsf.org, and I would be happy to notify you when that workshop is scheduled. But we have lots of great stuff that is going on, and we have taxes, we helping people to understand their property tax bills. We have one about planning for home maintenance, repairs, and upgrades. There's one about HOAs if you happen to have a condominium where you're dealing with a homeowners association. So lots of great workshops. We hope you'll check out some of those and come to see us there. So again, I've introduced our presenters. Let's go ahead and get started with Irene. Irene, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you so that you can talk a little bit about the work you do at HERA. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Good evening, everyone. Very happy to see you here for this important topic of estate planning. I work at HERA, which stands for Housing and Economic Rights Advocates. It's a statewide nonprofit legal services agency, and the main mission is to help people ensure that they keep their home. And estate planning is a very important piece of that keeping the family home project. So we do a bunch of different things here, and currently I focus on estate planning and some other aspects of home preservation. So probably all of you have heard of the term estate plan or a will or a living trust, anything of that nature. And you might wonder, do I need one? Maybe you have heard that people telling you that you need one. Or maybe you thought trust is for people who have a lot and to worry about. And so yeah, so who really needs one? And the answer is pretty much everyone that's above 18 years old, because it doesn't only include documents that talk about our inheritance planning. It also has documents that help us plan for the incidents of incapacity in our lifetime. So there are mainly two group of documents. One that governs things during our lifetime. When we're healthy and well, we can think about naming someone that we trust to manage our finance and also help talking to health professionals in case one day we can't do those things ourselves. So that's an important piece of estate planning. And also there are documents that govern where my treasures go after I'm no longer around, and who my beneficiaries are, and who are the people that I trust to really make sure that things that I desire get carried out. And also, if you have minor children, you can use these documents to nominate a guardian for minor children, and of course for just planning for unfortunate circumstances. So like I said, there are mainly two groups of documents, and the documents that kind of plan for incapacity during our lifetime include durable power of attorney and advanced healthcare directive. So advanced healthcare directive in some other states are also called power of attorney for medical affairs. So it's a similar concept to durable power of attorney for finances, is where you name someone in your documents, ideally more than one candidate, in case your first choice person can't act when the time comes. And when you do become incapacitated, either temporarily or more long term, this person that you name can step in your shoes and, you know, help you withdraw money from the bank, pay your bills, and file tax return, and also discuss your medical related preferences and decisions with the doctors and nurses and so forth. So those documents, we create them when we are healthy and well, and they take effect when we become incapacitated, and they lose effect when we pass away. And during our lifetime, we can also create trust and will. And these documents mainly govern what happens to our assets after we pass away. And during our lifetime, when we make a living trust, it's revocable and amendable. So we can make changes to it, to the documents as life changes. And then will, if you can always make a new will if things change, and the new will revoke the older versions. And once we pass away, when that day comes, then our trust and will become irrevocable. So they become final, but they still carry legal effect. And that's kind of when our trusted people help us make sure our treasures go to our beneficiaries. Yeah, so just a little recap here. Out of these 4 documents, durable power attorney and healthcare directive manage incapacity planning, revocable trust, and our last will and testament, or will in short, govern inheritance planning. So you might have heard this term called probate, and this is actually one main reason why we want to consider having a living trust. So probate is essentially a court supervised process that it makes sure that the deceased person's rights are protected. So it's a court process where the judge and the court personnel supervise each step of the way, making sure the deceased person's estate or assets at the time of death go to the right people. So the judge will look at if there's a will or not, and if there is a will, whether it's valid by legal standards. And if there is no will, then the court will look at the probate code and decide who should be a legal heir of this deceased person, and in what order should the estate be distributed. And the court will also appoint someone responsible for the job of actually making sure the deceased person's assets gets passed down to his heir or her heirs. And that person sometimes is called a personal representative, sometimes it's called an executor or administrator. Usually when there's a will, that person, that role is called executor. So this process usually takes a long time, and it's also costly since every step of the way is under court supervision. And it's a good way to really make sure the deceased person's rights are protected. But it could also be inconvenient if, according to the probate code, the legal heir could be so and so, but in your real life, the people that you are closest to the most might not be what the probate code says. So in order to try not to have your estate go through this process, we can use the tool of living trust to bypass it. Once you have a trust in place, the court will honor that instead. So that's why we consider making a revocable trust or revocable living trust during our lifetime to govern that inheritance, rather than just letting our affairs go through probate. And not everyone would have to worry about probate, but everyone that owns a real property, BMR properties included in California, everyone in this category, homeowners, will benefit from living trust 99.5% of the time, I would say. So yeah, just a little more on probate. When there is a will, it's not enough to bypass the probate process, because the court wants to look at whether the will is valid or not. So this is in the context where there is a will without a living trust. And then the court also appoints someone to make sure the wish of the dead gets carried out. And the court supervises, oversees the different steps, and the court also kind of approves and determines the final distribution. Again, it might be very different outcome from what you have in mind. So it's always a important decision or consideration to have, and a discussion to have with attorneys and other professionals in the estate planning arena to see if in your situation you would benefit from having living trust executed. And like I said earlier, everyone, no matter how much assets they own or not, will benefit from having proper and personalized estate planning. So there are several, I guess, frequently asked questions, and there are a lot more questions. And people usually would wonder, the first thing on their mind, how much does it cost to make an estate plan? And the market, kind of the standard in the market keeps changing these days, and especially I would say with the pandemic, it's been going up quite a bit. We at HERA, we have a sliding scale fee schedule where we look at the household size and their income, annual income level, and so it depends on that figure, and we would charge different legal fee. And if you would like to know more about what we do here at HERA for estate planning matters, you can feel free to contact us using this phone number or email. And then if you already have some sort of estate planning documents in place, I would say usually for power of attorney and advanced healthcare directive documents, institutions that interact with you and look at those documents, they want those to be at least within 5 years old. And if it's older than that, sometimes they get rejected. So that's that. And then with living trust and will, when you have life circumstances change, like a new grandchild born that you want to add to your beneficiaries list, or there's some marital status change and things of that nature, you would want to look into amending your documents to reflect the most current status. So I believe that's the end of my very high level overview. And if you have questions regarding estate planning, you can put them in the chat and I will hand it over to Sandra.
All right, thank you. So my name is Sandra Gates Anderson. I'm in the loan servicing department at the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development. The Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development supports residents with affordable housing opportunities, essential services to build and maintain strong communities. So estate planning and MoCD's housing programs. The city encourages BMR endowed homeowners to access estate planning tools just like market rate homeowners. Transferring title to a living revocable trust is allowed if the trust meets MoCD's requirements. Homeowners must be in compliance with the program rules to be eligible for title transfer to living trust. For additional information, we ask that you email us. Also, this information is also on our website. The Living Trust Transfer Request Package is on our website. So what will MoCD need to approve a trust? There needs to be a title change request letter to the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development. There's draft trust documents such as a declaration of trust, abstract of trust, or trust certificate. There's also a certification of trust authority and power and a draft of what the new grant deed will be, showing the proposed vesting. Your submission will not be reviewed until all the required documents have been received. And again, the submission application or checklist is on our website. And so you could use that to put your package together. You can put it together or you can work with an attorney to put it together. So what happens upon a BMR owner's death? When one BMR owner dies, but there are surviving co-owners, surviving co-owners should notify the Mayor's Office of Housing within 60 days to request to remove a deceased owner from title. You also want to contact your servicer and continue to make the mortgage payments and other housing expenses such as HOA dues, property tax, and insurance to avoid foreclosure while the home is being transferred or sold. When all the BMR owners die, if the deceased child or spouse qualifies for the BMR program, they can inherit the home and occupy it as their primary residence. If the next of kin is not qualified or not interested in keeping the home, they can sell it and keep the sales proceeds. When can I find more information? For additional information, again, you can email us. Our email address is on the screen. Also, Shannon mentioned that on their website, Home Ownership SF, you can find information about future workshops. And there's also a YouTube channel on their website that you can click on. There's a previous version of the longer version of this workshop.
Thank you so much to our presenters. And yes, that longer version of the workshop is on our YouTube channel. You can check that out. Again, if you wish to be notified of when that next longer version is scheduled. Clearly, this is an issue that we can talk a lot more about. That workshop's 2 hours long. These Housing Expo workshops are really to provide with a little introduction and also to connect with some resources and services that can help you along your way. But there's a lot more information. And also, a lot of it is going to be very specific to your household. And so, meeting with an attorney is going to be a very important step regardless. And so you have Hera's information as well. If anybody wants a copy of these slides, we would be more than happy to send them out to you later. You can either email me at info@homeownershipsf.org, or you can again toss your request to please be emailed the slides in the chat box. As I mentioned, we also have the Resource Fair and Help Center. So this is actually happening on Saturday. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful sunshiny day, 70 degrees and gorgeous. So we hope that you will join us for the Resource Fair and Help Center, which is the sort of big climax, hurrah. We will be doing it in person this year at Loyola Harvard Early Education Center, which I apologize, I just realized the address is not on this slide, but you can get the address on our website, homeownershipsf.org, and Loyola Harvard Early Education Center is in the Bayview District on Oakdale, just right off of 3rd Street. It's right behind the Bayview Opera House. And so there's going to be a lot going on that day. It's going to be a very exciting event. It is free of charge. You can walk around the various information tables. We'll have all sorts of booths with all sorts of information from city agencies, industry professionals, nonprofits. We actually have over 60 different exhibitors who will be providing information. You can have an opportunity to talk to them one-on-one, in person, and ask your questions. We also will have individual assistance, a help center, where you can sit down with a housing counselor or the legal aid person. And we also have tenants' rights organizations, just FYI, that would be there, talking about eviction protections and eviction defense. And so if you're experiencing a housing emergency or anything that would be a threat, you can come in, you can apply for the California Mortgage Assistance Programs, helping people who become behind on their mortgages because of COVID. There's the city help loan that can help not only with your mortgage, but with some of the other expenses like property taxes that again might have been impacted by your financial hardship. You can talk to somebody who works with those programs and see what your household might be eligible for and how we can support you. So I definitely hope that we will see you there. Again, this is Saturday, October 1st at Loyola Harvard Early Education Center. So between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. So I'm going to go now to the chat to ask the questions. So we do have one question that it's about BMR owners. So probably this one's for you, Sandra. Are BMR owners required to sign new rules to put the property in living trust?
No, they do not. No new rules, but they need to look at the submission checklist and all the required information that has to be in the trust. And if they have any questions, their attorney can assist them with that. Like you mentioned, Hera can assist them, but no, they do not have to sign on to any new rules.
Next question from Albert. Are living trusts created in California valid in other states, such as Texas or Arizona? I mean, that might be one for you.
I would say in general, California living trust created in California will be valid in other states as well. But you definitely want to work with a local attorney if you move to another state, especially if you own properties in that state too, because the laws governing properties are very localized, and you will have the attorney of that state to help you prepare a grant deed and to transfer the house into the trust that's created in California, because every state has different ways and different nuances in those laws. And also sometimes, there are states that are community property state, and there are states that are not community property state. That's a concept in marital or marriage law or family law. So yeah, you want to work with attorney and see if the terms are applicable, and if there are changes need to be made. And because once the person pass away and the trustees comes in to really administer the trust, it will apply the local law where that trustee is. So yeah, so even though the trust will remain valid, you want to work with a local attorney to really rule out any nuanced problems.
Fantastic, thank you. At this time, I would like to invite anybody who has a question, if they want to unmute yourself and ask that question. I would invite you to do so right now. You can also still chat questions to me in the chat if you would rather that I read them. And as I mentioned, you can always email me if your question is of a more private or personal nature. Not hearing any questions. I actually did get another question. There's a couple of questions that I can read. So
I have a question.
oh, please, yes, go ahead.
Yes, so I was thinking, well, actually, I would like to know if there is a way to, I live in Mexico before. So in Mexico, when you die, you like the people who inherit the property don't need to pay like the extra payments. And probably it's because of some kind of insurance. And I'm wondering in here in United States or in California, if there is something similar, like when we, like, let's say that if I die, my children don't need to continue making the payments, the mortgage payments. I don't know if I explained myself.
I'm not familiar with anything like that. How about you, Shannon or Irene? I'm not familiar with anyone not having to make any obligated payments to the mortgage lender if there is an outstanding loan.
I mean, I do know that loans are written typically very differently. Mortgage loans in particular are radically different in Mexico, very much a different beast. And so I am not aware of, inheritance sort of protections or insurance or anything that would make the payments. Some people do have, life insurance or other insurance that would help the survivors, children and family members, but they wouldn't take over the payments directly. That would be something where there would typically be a sort of income based agreement that's happening, and that would be outside of the mortgage. And then with that money, then the survivor could then make payments, but that doesn't happen automatically. I haven't heard of anything like that. Irene, have you?
I wish that's the case. I haven't heard of anything like that either. And I think it's outside of the scope of our estate planning discussion. So yeah.
I agree. What a great idea though. So the next question I have is, does this workshop receive credit for the BMR application? If you are needing to take the home buyer required education for home buyers to use one of the city assistance programs, there is very specific workshops that you need to take, and it's not this workshop. So the answer is no. And also for the post-purchase requirement to receive your refund for the deposit that you when you buy a BMR, you take some education afterwards and then get some money back. This doesn't qualify for that either. Again, those are sort of more specific, and you can find out more information on Homeownership SF in terms of what those workshops are. This is for information only. The next question I have is, can I add my son to the deed of a BMR? He was still a minor when I purchased the unit. We would qualify now, but not sure upon my death. So Sandra, that's probably for you.
So at the time of your death, there's specific things that your heir would do. And so if you contact us via email, I believe that our email address was listed, and I can also put it in the chat so that you can have it and I can speak to that. Okay, so this is our email address that's on this screen. And if you could just email us that question and I can send you some information specific, be sure to include your address. So this would be something that they would do in the event of your death. There was a slide, maybe a couple of slides back, that Shannon has in this presentation that talked about in the event of your death, if BMR owner dies. So that's what would be applicable to you, but I will speak to you specifically about it one-to-one if you email us at sfhousinginfo@sfgov.org. And again, be sure to include your address when you email me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would jump in also, before you consider putting people on title, you really want to have estate planning discussion with an attorney, and ideally also a tax professional, because there are implications with that move, and sometimes it might not be the best choice.
So I do have another question here, and this question is, if you are leasing and do not own a property, can the property be passed to your relative? I'm not sure that I understand that question. Does the person who asked the question want to maybe come on their mic, unmute themselves and clarify the question so that we can be sure to get you the answer?
Yes, if you are leasing or maybe renting a property and it's not and you haven't owned it or you're not buying it, can it be passed on to your heir?
Are you talking about the property that you're renting?
Yes, or leasing and not the owner of. Say like you lease a property for a year, 5 years, and something happens. Can it be passed to your heir?
So the right to occupy under your lease essentially being passed on?
Yes.
I think is what maybe they're asking about. I mean,
yes.
The right to occupy. Well, I haven't heard of such a thing where you pass away and you pass on the right to occupy to your legal heir. Yeah, it's not an ownership.
I think that that would be a really great question to talk to the rent board about. If you want to shoot me an email, I would be happy to connect you with the rent board so that you could ask them that question as far as related to the city of San Francisco. In terms of sort of California, you know, I'm not aware of anything that, you know, sort of guarantees the occupancy to surviving family members, but it's possible, or, you know, from San Francisco protections, there may be something there. And that's more of a question, I think, for a tenant attorney or one of the tenant rights organizations, such as Housing Rights Committee, might be able to offer more expertise on that, because they really have the specialty on leases and tenant rights. That's a great question. In fact, if you or actually, never mind, that workshop's happening right now at the same time. So I was gonna say you can go pop in on EDC's workshop, but just shoot me an email, and I'm more than happy to be able to do that.
Thank you.
So Carla, perhaps it sounds like maybe your question wasn't answered fully, or you sort of wanted to expound on that further. Do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask, or were you going to deal with that?
Sure. I had the question about adding a child who had been a minor at the time of purchase and adding them to the deed now. Because what I understand is that if you put it in a trust, when you die, your heir would have to qualify. And I don't know if that would be the case. So what I'm asking is, like other multi-generational families who, if there was a child who was 18, they could be on the deed. So what I'm wondering is that now that my child is an adult and has always lived there, can he be on the deed? Thanks.
So the short answer is no. The long answer is what I'm going to give you when you email me. I'm going to give you the information, and they're still going to have to qualify. As a matter of fact, Shannon, if you could go back a couple of slides on my part of the presentation. So there is, or I'm sorry, go forward right here. This one's fine. Let me just go over this one again. And again, I'm sorry, what was your name? The person
This is about not when I die, but now. So I think you answered the question. The answer is no. Thank you.
Yeah, so the answer is no, but I do want to give you some additional information to be able to assist you. But yes, you know, you can't just add someone in, like you mentioned, for multi-generational properties. In the past, they did require people, if you had someone that was a non-dependent, to be on title, or if they were 18 years or older, they had to be on the title of the property. But a lot of those people moved out, and then that makes you out of compliance, because what if they get married, they move on? So we will definitely— Are
you saying that everybody on the title has to be living in the household at all times?
Yes. That's
okay.
Exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, I guess that's not really happening. Thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is there any other questions that we have at this time? Well, I don't hear any questions, but again, we continue to be available. So please feel free to reach out to our presenters directly, or to reach out to Homeownership SF. We'd be more than happy to assist you further and continue to be of service. You can, again, just a reminder to check our website for upcoming workshops. Specifically, go to the homeowner tab to find our post-purchase workshops.